Geography.
Oh, really? What did you do in geography?
As their daughter Emily braced herself for the nerve-wracking first day of high school, Gabe and Maria Carey were struck with a few anxious thoughts of their own.
Couldn't choose out of them, so
Okay,
I brought them
we've
both.
taken her to every event. We've driven her to school for the last 6 years, and we felt really uncomfortable sending her on the bus to school for the first time.
So we Googled some different devices or different applications we could use to help her, and one of the ones that we found was Life 360.
Okay, so at the moment we can see that Emily is on the bus.
So there are some parents who would say that monitoring your kids in this way is an invasion of privacy. What do you say to that?
I find it quite an odd question when you talk about privacy, because you think about all the TikTok, all these other apps out there that are undermining privacy, and kids are unaware of the unintended consequences of some of these applications. We're talking about an application that tells us where our children are.
So she's only 7 kilometres away from home.
If our children aren't in the right place because they've missed a bus stop or something, we know where they are. To me, I don't think that's a privacy issue. That's a safety mechanism.
I just think if the child's living under our house, under our roof, we are responsible for them.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about privacy until they leave the home.
The Careys aren't an anomaly. A 2019 survey from the Royal Children's Hospital reported that 1 in 5 parents use location tracking apps with their kids. And in the years since, the popularity of surveillance software like Life 360 has only grown stronger.
It's just so easy to do now. So for parents to look at the app or get notifications about where their child's moving, whether they're driving in the car or not, but it does come with some risk factors as well that I think parents should be aware of.
As a senior lecturer in digital ethics at the University of Melbourne, Dr. Simon Coughlin co-authored a recent paper examining parents' attitudes towards tracking technologies.
Some parents who do use the technology have various ways of rationalising it or talking about it. So they don't like the terms like surveillance or even location tracking. They prefer to describe it as things like, I'm checking in on my child. And one of the reasons for that is they might say, I'm not constantly looking at where my child is going. On the other hand, they do have the ability to do that.
So what are the ethical concerns around parents monitoring their kids in this way?
Well, I think it's the ability to track kids' location in fine detail could feed into over-controlling parenting, overzealous parenting or helicopter parenting. The other thing is just the normalisation of data collection in society. So these kids are growing up with tracking applications. And so when they're faced with all kinds of tracking and surveillance, there is a concern, I think, that they might become too used to it. And that could lead to further and further encroachment of tracking and monitoring and surveillance in our lives.
So we are away from your home. It's a little ways over there, but your parents can tell where you are because of Life 360. How does that feel?
Pretty cool and interesting.
Interesting. It's a very clever app.
Yeah.
But does it feel okay to you that your parents can check in on where you are?
Sometimes.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Yes.
What don't you like about the app?
Well, sometimes I don't like them looking at me on it because it doesn't feel right sometimes.
Feels a bit creepy, maybe? Is that a word you would use?
Yeah. At first I was a bit nervous because I wasn't really sure on what it could do and why they wanted it, and then I'm starting to understand why.
Why is it?
To keep me safe.
Would you feel a bit nervous going and catching the bus if you didn't have Life 360?
Definitely.
We absolutely want our kids to be free and to be able to make choices for themselves and to learn through mistakes. That's a fundamental part about growing up. The thing with Life 360 is we found with our kids growing up, and I'm not sure if it's media or if it's the world has changed, but they're quite anxious and they feel concerned about their own safety. And so they may not make those choices, or they may not be willing to go out on a bus by themselves because they're just scared. So in fact, it's not necessarily taking away their freedom, it's in some ways giving them more freedom because they've got this little safety net behind them. And kids at 13, they need a safety net.
Maria, do you find it feeds any anxiety in yourself by constantly checking the app?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm an anxious person anyway, so I feel that with the app it's given me a sense of calm and ease because I don't have to be calling her. I know that the app's going to tell me if there's a change to her situation at a time that shouldn't be. And so, to me, it's helping me with my anxiety, if anything.
Many users of these apps share the view that they help calm the nerves of children and parents alike. But cyber psychologist Jocelyn Brewer warns that over time, these apps can have the opposite effect.
We know that lots of young people are experiencing higher levels of depression and anxiety, for instance, and that anxiety can just be from needing that regular feedback and not having that confidence and the experiences to be able to kind of traverse their lives the way that we might have in the 80s and 90s without, you know, a high-powered computing device in the palm of our hand. So swings and roundabouts, and we've got to look at the tool and then look at the context that we're using it in and then find that really healthy balance so that we can reap the benefits but really try and avoid some of the pitfalls around over-reliance, you know, anxiety, just that complete lack of ability to problem solve unless we, you know, reach out to that trusted adult for almost everything. But the real question is, when is your kid old enough not to be tracked? And I have had, you know, young people who are way past school age and very much adults whose parents are still keeping an eye on their movement in a, I would say, potentially controlling and unhelpful way.
While many teens do push back on being tracked as they reach adulthood, not everyone has a problem with it. 18-year-old Sissy Crawford has been sharing her whereabouts with her dad, Matt, since she was 13, and she doesn't plan to stop until she moves out of home.
I don't mind my parents using the app. I think it gives them peace of mind, which is helpful to me as well. If they know I'm safe, they're more willing to let me do things. The only reason it would stop me is if what I want to do independently is put myself into a dangerous situation or go somewhere where I know I'm not allowed to go. But as long as I'm doing things that I'm allowed to do, then I'm free to be as independent as I want.
I understand that some people might think that it's somehow invasive or could be seen as stalking, but I think a lot of that has to do with the way that you actually use the app. We are quite laissez-faire with Sissy in many ways that other parents might not be. Boyfriends can stay over at our house, sleep over and so forth. So it comes down to just, if you're overly strict and authoritarian, this could be, again, used to enhance that or actually make that worse. And we don't believe in that. That's not how we live.
If you have a great relationship with your child and they're very trusting of their parents, then they might not have a problem at all with the use of these location tracking apps. On the other hand, some kids do want to explore and experiment on their own. So I think the key to the ethics of it is to really have a good conversation with the child. And the parents can sort of ask themselves some questions too. What's my child like? Is this going to interfere with my relationship with the child or not? And is it really worth it? Like, is it actually making my kids any safer, or is it really just giving me a sense of reassurance that doesn't make them safe at all?
But what do you like about the app?
I like how if I'm on it, I can see where they are. Because sometimes I'm like on my phone, and then when I know they're coming back, I just go straight to homework or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because you're clever. You're using the app for good, I think.